Hello everyone, today I will show you my chess game that I would like to share with you and break down the details. I play for black and white goes e4, I answer e5. White plays the pawn again, I play the knight. White again plays a pawn to open the way for the queen. Black attacks the center, white defends with a pawn. An exchange of pawns and I lead the knight back. The whites play horse, I also play horse. g3, c5, h4, b5. A pawn attacks my knight, I have to drive him back again. The knight takes my pawn, I play the d6 queen, attacking the knight. White defends with a bishop, I attack the bishop with a pawn. If the bishop takes my pawn, I'll take your knight. Therefore, you cannot beat a pawn with an bishop. But white hits the pawn, I hit the pawn with the knight and attack the bishop again. Exchange of knights. Knight a3, bishop h6, bishop e7, attacking the rook. Pawn protection. The knight hits the b5 pawn. Queen g7. After this move, you can understand that now a very interesting and fiery game will begin. After all, I made a mistake and the knight attacks the king and the rook. Rook g1, bishop e3. Here I made a mistake again and went like an bishop on f4. I wanted the pawn to take the bishop and I would take the rook, but I didn't notice the other bishop in time. But to my surprise, the whites somehow do not take the bishop but attack it with the queen. Now I attack the rook with confidence. g1 rook, bishop exchange, f6 knight, and it's a mistake again because the pawn beats my bishop. Queen h6, pawn e5, knight h5. The knight tries to escape, and this is again a mistake, but on the part of white. I attack the queen with a rook, and it cannot be moved because the king will be in check. The horse tries to somehow save the situation and plays check. Check again. The king attacks the horse. Now white has a bad situation because they have a knight and a queen under battle. The queen has no choice but to crash the tour. Check with queen, king e2. The king takes away the c7 knight. The rook attacks the queen retreats. White tries to press and makes a check. The king moves to the side and white moves h1. And after this move, black loses because I make a cunning move with the f for knight with a check. The king retreats and the queen beats a rook on h1. So the king moves aside, the knight beats the pawn. Here white wants to pawn all the way for the new queen, but I make the king a dangerous check and make him move to c4, because after that I find a diamond move with the knight e5 and it is a fork for the king and the rook. Here I am forced to take a pawn, because I have more pawns to reach the end of the map. Here I understood that in no case can one become a king under the queen's line, because then there will be very big problems. White attacks the king as much as possible, forcing him to stand under the queen line. Here white understands that I will not make this mistake and queen beats the pawn. I check the king and take the queen. Here I have a big advantage in the position and I calmly reach the end of the pawn, and after that I put a beautiful checkmate on the king. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel for more games and tips.